I don't like I have like a backlog of podcast episodes from different podcasts that I like to listen to. Um, and I have to do it during the summer because during the school year, my capacity for additional choir is like very limited.
Oh, understandable.
But yours, I've actually listened to a couple of episodes of your podcast during the school year.
Wow.
Like,
Honored.
that shows you, like, the respect that I have for this podcast is very high. And I have to say, it does a thing that I think podcasts have to do to make people want to listen every week, which is it's enjoyable. It's like entertaining, you know?
Okay. Well, we have fun together.
Well done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Very good. Whatever.
I kiss
So
my
sweet.
thumb, guys. I kiss my thumb. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Choir Guys podcast, brought to you by GIA Publications and Walton Music. My name is Blake Richter.
And I am Danny Gutierrez.
We are very excited to welcome another guest to the podcast, JD Frizzell. Yeah.
JD Frizzell is a director of fine arts and the director of vocal music at Briarcrest Christian School in Memphis, Tennessee, where you were born.
No,
Oh,
not even close.
but you were from there,
Not
like
even
originally.
close.
You lived in Tennessee at one point.
I did live in Tennessee.
That's what I'm saying.
Clarksville, Tennessee.
But until what year?
I moved there when I was 6,
And
and
you
I moved here in this city when I was 9.
6 to 9 are formative years.
I did not come out as a 6-year-old. Continue.
As a director of fine arts at Briarcrest, Dr. Frizzell leads a faculty of 12 full-time faculty artists and is responsible for coordinating curriculum, instruction, and budgets for all the fine arts programs. He also serves as an advocate and a school liaison for all of the visual art, instrumental music, vocal music, dance theater, and technical production programs. As the director of vocal music, he teaches the men's choir, advanced women's choir, and One Voice.
Ooh, he is also the co-founder and the president of the Cappella Education Association, a nonprofit dedicated to helping groups around the world. He also founded the National Cappella and Choral Convention. His high school a cappella group, One Voice, is a Sony recording artist. They were the winners of the Macy's A Cappella Challenge, judged by Pentatonics, contestants on America's Got Talent, performers at the Emmys, and collaborators with Foreigner and the Swingles. So basically, JD's a big deal.
He's a big deal.
Their music has been streamed, downloaded, and viewed over 120 million times. Million times. Dr. Frizzell co-authored the books A Cappella Warm-Ups for Pop and Jazz Choirs and Teaching Music Through Performance in Contemporary A Cappella. Please welcome JD Frizzell!
Good morning, you guys. It's so good to be here. And wow, what an introduction.
Probably
We
the
do our
worst
best.
introduction you've ever heard in your entire life.
I think it was mildly entertaining. I don't know.
I'll give you that.
You'll
So
give
anyway.
it mildly entertaining or the worst introduction you've ever heard.
Yes.
Sure.
So I'm super excited to have JD here today. I mean, he is so he's a really cool guy. When I realized that I had to start a contemporary a cappella group, I joined the Facebook group. What's that thing called? A
Cappella Now.
A Cappella Now. And I don't know what I said. I said something like, help me, or something along those lines. And then JD messaged me, and he was like, hey, if you want to talk sometime about this, that'd be awesome. And I was like,
Yes.
JD Frizzell messaging me? Moi? He's messaging me, and he said something along the lines of, I've seen some of your work or something along those lines. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening now? And then we touched base, and he gave me some great input. And of course, I've seen him just through different channels, whether it's media, social media. And three of the things that come into mind, one thing was, this is after the fact. This is just watching his Facebook. There was this horrific video of him lifting a weight, and it just like crushing his body or something like that. Something snapped. What exactly happened with that?
It was just at the end of this long workout, and you had to like do a max lift, of an overhead snatch movement is what it's called. And so I just missed the lift. And when you miss the lift, you're supposed to either drop it in front or behind. So I did, but my feet were really wide, and I dropped the weight on my foot. So it was like 185 pounds that I just dropped from over my head to my foot.
Oh, the injury was a foot injury.
Yes.
It looked like your arm snapped.
I know my arms are fine. That's
God.
how you're supposed to do it. But if you go back and watch it, which many people have, the stats on that video
watched it several times.
Pretty amazing. No one watched it one time. You'll see that the pain is actually after it bounces off of my metatarsals. Yeah.
Wow,
beautiful.
The fact that you said metatarsals too, I appreciate that. And another video I can think of is I don't know if you were in like Europe or something. And you were going, this is going to sound weird, but you're going down like this alley and you were doing some sort of dance or something like that. What was that?
Oh, man. We had just been, this was in Spain last year. We were on tour with our choir and our band, and we had just seen a flamenco show. And it was the last night of the tour, and so everybody was in high spirits. And there was this one guy who they all just they said he was like Mr. Riz up there. You know, if you've ever seen a flamenco show.
Did they say it in Spanish though?
What's that?
They said Mr. Riz in Spanish though.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
And so immediately on the way home, Frizz, which is what they call me, became Riz
Mr.
or
Frizz,
Rizzell.
Riz,
so it's
yeah.
my alter
Dr.
ego
Riz.
when I'm in Europe.
I like that.
Riz, yeah. So I was Rizzell, and they wanted me to dance flamenco, and so that was me.
That's what you're
dancing through the alleys of Spain doing the flamenco.
That was charming. And then you were talking about it's conducting video the other day.
So when I have seen your stuff on Facebook, I just see backflips happening. I see you jumping around. Can you explain what your conducting style is and how we can all as conductors implement some backflips or
the cutoffs?
I don't know if you're doing a front handspring. I don't know any of. Did you do gymnastics growing up? What the heck, dude?
Yeah. So, I mean, I did do gymnastics growing up, and I still kind of do. But all those pictures and videos that you see are all from one single concert that we do every year. And that is the only time I flip or jump in the air. The flip is at the beginning of the concert. We do these Pops concerts at the end of the year, and it's 300 kids in the show, 3,000 people come see it. And it's a big deal, and I have to hype everybody up. So I always sprint in at the very beginning of the show to a Bruno Mars song, and then I do some kind of acrobatic move on stage, and then go around high-fiving everybody. So that's that. That's just my hype move for the choir and the audience. And then the big jumping thing is the final night of that Pops concert. One year I just got really into it, and we do Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Oh gosh, who arranged that?
Kirby
that one?
Shaw.
Kirby Shaw. It's the Kirby Shaw arrangement. We've done it for 16 years as the final song, and all the alumni come back up, and so I was just really into it one time, and so the final cutoff, it was lay me down, and I jumped. And I cut everybody off, and people freaked out, and they were like, that jumping cutoff was so sweet, man. So, of course, I have to do it every year, and I have to try to jump higher and make it look cooler. So, it's all literally one concert. The rest of the year, I promise you, I conduct a normal human being with an ictus and, actual direction. Yeah.
It's not in the middle of a Bach, motet or something. You're just jumping and doing a backflip or something. That'd be cool.
I mean, it would be cool. I mean, I've seen groups do entire choreo in the middle of a Bach piece.
That's my goal for next year.
Mein Herr ist tot. Yeah, I don't know. I understand the pressure of a Pops concert, especially, and wanting to do something extra. So that happened to me this last concert that we had. We call our showcase concert. It's a Pops concert. Last year, after one of our pieces, I fell off the stage. Intentionally, of course, as I broke my arm.
It was not intentional.
I was trying to direct traffic And I didn't notice, but there was no steps in front of me or stage in front of me. It was all dark.
It was a brand new performance hall that we had just gotten, and so we weren't quite used to it yet, and it was just, all dark.
It was horrific. I fell off, and then everything got quiet, and in my head I was just like, what am I going to do now? And then I played it off reasonably well. I got to the mic and I was like, well, sometimes this stuff happens. But I was injured and I, like an idiot, I just finished the concert, and made it happen. I don't know how
like all administrators are texting you like, hey, workman's comp, like go to the doctor, all this stuff, like immediately.
What was funny was the injury report I had to do. It said how many witnesses were present. And I had to answer that question, and I'm sure that
1,000.
Yeah, that the school nurse was like, well, "What's happening right now?"
So JD, whenever I was in college, my brother showed me a video of pentatonics, and then my love of a cappella music just exploded from there. I'm not as obsessed with a cappella music anymore because I'm not like in the world as much as like I don't have a contemporary a cappella group at the middle school level because it's possible, but like it's. Yeah, it's probably just not going to happen. But, I was obsessed with pentatonics and, like, I started arranging stuff for our, collegiate a cappella groups at Missouri State University.
Like, What Does the Fox Say?
My first one was What Does the Fox Say for the Missouri State Baritones. And I did it as a joke.
It's a good arrangement.
And they loved it
quite a bit.
Yeah, I did it as a joke, and they loved it, and so they performed it, and they went on tour with it and stuff. But I would run into, like, some of your arrangements and stuff too, and I would just always see your name. So I've been, a big fan for a while. But I see, you were judged by pentatonics. Your group was judged by pentatonics. I'm assuming you've gotten to meet pentatonics before.
Yeah, a few different times.
How are they?
They're very cool, and I mean, I've seen them throughout their career. So like the first time I met them in person was at the Kettering A Cappella Festival, and it was in 2015. It was right after they had won the sing-off. It was either 15 or 14. It was right after that, and it was back when you could get them to like come to your high school a cappella festival, right? So like before they really blew up.
I think they came to Southwest ACDA one year and performed there.
They did. They performed at Southwest ACDA
because it was in Texas, and they're from Texas. So yeah.
Right, yeah. Back in that era, before they were playing like arena concerts, and so they had this showcase, and Pentatonics was there, and they were like giving everyone comments, like feedback, like they all had the microphones on, and like you would do at a choral festival. And so this was the first time we had gone to any event like this. And my good friend Brody McDonald invited us. He's like, you guys have got to come. You got to apply for the showcase. I think your group would do well. So we made the showcase. Every group, I think, sings 2 songs. But it's one of those like environments where you have 1,000 kids who all do a cappella. And of course, they freak out at everything. It was really awesome. But I have these recordings. The middle of the first song that we sang, this was like One Voice's big like Welcome to the World party. We had no idea this was going to happen, but we sang this this arrangement of Gravity by John Mayer, and this amazing soloist, Hannah Gray, who ended up winning 3 Caras for best high school solo in a row.
Wow.
This was like her debut as a sophomore. Pentatonics stood up in the middle of that song. It was the first song we sang, maybe 2.5 minutes in, and it was a standing ovation. And it's one of those moments as a teacher that like you never forget.
Yeah.
And I have all the voice memos still, like the audio files on my computer of like Scott Hoying and like Avi, and then like just like freaking out and like talking about how cool it was, and like the bass in the group at the time. His name was John. He still has this recording because Avi, you remember when Avi Kaplan was in the group?
Oh.
And Avi was like,
Rip.
We remember.
He's like sitting there and he goes, good bass. That's a good bass. And John's like, that's all I ever needed in life was for Avi Kaplan to say I'm a good bass. I'm done with singing. I think I'm going to quit the group now. Like, so that was a really cool first Pentatonics moment. There is a music video, and I won't tell you what it is because it might be fun for people to look, but One Voice is also in a Pentatonics music video that they filmed in Memphis, Tennessee when they were on their tour, and so we went and we're in it.
That's awesome. Okay, now it's time for our first segment, choir news. Danny, what is your choir news today?
Well, for me, I guess we've been doing a lot of like solo and ensemble festival, large ensemble stuff. We did a competition. They won the Grand Champion sweepstakes for the third year in a row, which is pretty awesome.
How many choirs perform at that?
Overall, there were 92 at this competition.
So number one out of 92.
Yeah, for a third year in a row. It was kind of crazy, but it's super, super awesome. And we have, I mean, just look at, we have a teaching team. You know, we have one of the most incredible feeder programs in the nation. I'm pretty sure of that. So it makes sense. We do a lot of good work, of course, but it's an amazing team effort for sure. And we did great at solo ensemble. That was a lot of fun. I submitted conference recordings by miraculously. We got our ACDA submission in, which I'm super happy about. Thank you, Blake, for helping in the recording of that process. That was great. I actually submitted my MMEA recordings, like one of the choirs this week, so I was really happy about that.
Nice.
And that's pretty much just doing the end of the year stuff. We have our like banquet stuff. We have the showcase concert, Pops concert. Hopefully I don't fall off the stage again. And that's pretty much me. How about you? And also we did like a large ensemble stuff yesterday.
So this week has been nuts, and that's why we dressed casual today. I'm glad JD also got the casual memo and repping One Voice on the hoodie.
That's what's up.
Because it's a Saturday morning, and you know, this week we had essentially two concerts Monday night, and then we had a contest on Thursday for four of our choirs. Then we had contest yesterday for two of our choirs. So it's just been a long week, but such an amazing week at the same time. I'm just so proud of our kids, and this year has been such a crazy, incredible year because I've gotten to co-teach every single class except one all year long, and co-teaching has just changed the game at our school. So we're just really happy. One thing that I think other choir directors should steal from our program is this year we started collaborating. I know a lot of people already do this, but to be more vertically aligned, Danny, our fall concert, you brought your chamber men's choir and they sang a piece at our concert to kind of show the men like, hey, here's what's possible in high school. But then our men also got to sing with them, so they got to combine together. And then this semester, we had your chamber women's ensemble come and sing with our girls, and they also sang a piece by themselves. And it just like shows parents, it shows students, it shows everyone.
They're going somewhere.
They're going somewhere, and like it gives them that feeling of like this, because they get to sing with them, gives them this feeling of like, this is what I have to look forward to, which is so great. And I loved getting to do that this year, and we're going to just keep doing that. But yeah, we had contests the past couple days. They just give you gold, silver, or bronze. There's no like first place, second place, and all of our choirs got gold, so we're super proud of them.
But it was like, there's gold and there's gold. It was like stupid good. Like if you heard, and actually, I was thinking about it, Blake. I was thinking about the progression of what voices should sound like at different ages, and I'm not necessarily thinking that, like, I know people say good singing is good singing. Yes, but it will sound different at different ages, of course. And I was thinking about the way your students were singing, and it was such a healthy production. Specifically, I was thinking about the tenor basses. There was no tension. Everything was completely in tune, but it's way different than they would sound like at the high school level. However, it's just as appropriate. It's a lot of lifted sound. And I was just thinking of the progression of sound, right? So when they get to the high school, one of my emphasis is getting this sound super, super forward in that resonant spot and ringing. I don't think that sound is appropriate for a junior high level often, because there's a lot of registration issues that have to happen. There's a lighter
that happens.
Exactly, and that's what will happen. There's a lighter mechanism that needs to happen. A lot of those higher overtone, a lot of cricothyroid, if you will, a lot of that stuff needs to happen before you can get the balance, and I think that balance comes later on. So what I love about Blake's program is they're really working on this high-placed floating tone, so that when they get to the high school, especially the tenor bass voices specifically, the treble voice is a different ballgame, but Then when they get to the high school, we work on getting that sound to get forward. But I think the tandem of working on it progressively like that has been really effective. Yeah. So they were absolutely sensational. Those choirs.
A lot of that is, co-teaching with you in the morning. I get to learn a lot from you. So thank you.
We're just loving on each other right now.
This is so sweet.
Right. Isn't it cute?
Yeah.
And then lastly, I followed our advice that we said on the podcast that I usually don't follow. I followed our advice and I brought our little Zoom mic to a contest. I just put it on a pew and people were sitting by the mic and everything, but they always sing like the best they've ever sang at contests, and I never have good recordings. But this year I do have good recordings because I put it on a pew, and so we get
the acoustics in that place are really nice, right?
And I was so surprised because it's a very carpeted place, and I just wasn't.
We'll have to hit up Kevin Huffman and say hey,
I would love to record there.
Some point?
Yeah, it was great. Anyway, enough about us. JD, what can you talk about your choir news? I know I saw online where you are a Grammy Music Educator Award finalist,
legacy,
and which is incredible. Talk a little bit about that and whatever else you have going on.
Sure. Yeah. So I was a finalist for the 2024 awards. It was quite an honor, quite a surprise, but a really great process to be a part of. And then they make you a legacy quarterfinalist or whatever again. So we'll go back around another time. But the Grammy folks have been really great, and it's always cool when there's something that is sort of a national galvanizing tool or activity for the arts. And we know these things are in some ways just like I think a discussion we'll have later in this podcast. It's just some people's opinion, right, of the materials that are presented to them, sort of like your episode, the previous episode you guys did on conference submissions, right? It's a few people's opinions ultimately, but to have something that gets so many people excited and so many people posting on social media and commenting and talking about how great these different teachers are and the impacts that they've had on their kids, I think that's really, really important. So happy about that. My choir, just like yours, we are winding down the year. We just did our Pops concerts last weekend. We do 3 of them, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, just so that we can sell enough tickets for everybody to come see that.
That's a lot.
We sold about 3,000 tickets, which is selling out. And it by itself pretty much funds our vocal music department.
What cost are these tickets? If you don't mind sharing.
It's $15. Yeah, so you just
look at each other like, how will we?
You say 3,000 tickets?
When you said fund your department, we were like, dun, 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 dun. Okay.
Said 3,000.
Yeah, we don't
tickets?
do it's a private school, so they already pay to go to school there, and then we do have a small student fee that people pay that covers sheet music and things like that. But we don't do a million fundraisers and anymore. We used to sell coupon books and mattresses and whatever else you can sell. But I got really tired of that, and so a lot of our department in different areas is funded by an event or a couple of events. So this is the one for us. We certainly didn't start that way. It started 16 years ago. My first year teaching, I wore them out. And we had 3 concerts already, and we were supposed to do another. And I'm like, man, they're not going to make it. So they had never done a piece of pop music. I was like, let's do something fun. So I put together a little combo of players and threw my high school kids up there. And 750 people showed up, and they all paid $15 or something. And I was like, we had 50 people come to our free concerts, right, earlier in the year. So I was like, might be onto something here. Sounds like you all do something similar too. So we have built it into this thing. And I thought about this. You were talking about having, vertical alignment. That's one of the things that I really value as well. And we do. So all of our major concerts, fall, winter, spring, and then this Pops concert, we do with all 3 divisions of our school. So we have our elementary choir. It's about 80 to 100 kids who come and sing. Then we have our middle school choirs, and they all sing. And then we have our high school choirs and one voice, and they all sing. And typically we'll do some kind of combined opener or closer. And one of the things that I have done to try to get more young men singing, because it's really tough, especially I think in the South, there's a lot of athletic culture that's really strong, and you don't have to work to get them to do that. But to be artistic, to be creative, to be expressive, that takes a little bit more of a cultural push. And so we have the Briarcrest Singing Men, and I have the elementary kids all the way through the high school kids 3 times a year. We all sing together, and I have to be very careful about finding the right piece that has the right voicing, the right registrations, right, the right ranges for this to be successful. But yeah, we started with that. If you've ever done the pirate song, we started with the pirate song, and that was like the perfect first song to do for the Singing Men. And it's like 100 and something tenor basses all singing together, and so we did that at the Pops concert as well. And just like what a great tool for building confidence in those young singers, and making them realize. So this year for the Pops concert, we did "I'm Just Ken" from the Barbie movie. Yes. And everybody wore like a splash of pink. I of course like got like the full vest that Ken wore in the movie, and like the visor and the shades, and some people did full costume changes. But like the cool thing about this was, in my mind, I always imagine that hypothetically this increases their confidence in themselves. Like, it's cool to sing. It's cool to, like, it's okay. It's not something weird. It's not something just girls do. And I saw with a few like 3rd, 4th graders came up to me during our elementary rehearsals, and they'd be like, "I don't like that song because it's from the Barbie movie, and I don't want to sing it in front of a bunch of people." And I'm like, hey dude, just like trust me on this, okay? It's going to be awesome. Just find something pink, embrace it, go in there. And sure enough, after the first night, they were all like going to their parents and being like, "That was the coolest thing I've ever done. I can't wait until the next night," and I have so much fun. So that was a big hit. We have our final concert of the week tonight. Our One Voice album release concert is tonight.
Nice.
So we will do that. Then the last choir news I have is I just finished the first movement of my major work that I'm writing for choir and orchestra.
Nice.
It's going to be premiered at Carnegie Hall next spring on March 15th. I already have a good collection of high school choirs from around the country who are going to come together and sing that with our choir, and I'm going to conduct it at Carnegie. So really, really excited about that. So that's my choir news.
Is it too late for high school choirs or any choirs to sign up to be a part of that performance?
I'm so glad you asked, Blake. It's not too late. There actually, I think there's probably a slot for 1 choir, maybe 2 if they're smaller choirs, to still take part in it. It is being produced by National Concerts, so you can go to their website or just like hit me up in one of the many ways that you can find me online, and I'll be happy to connect you with them.
You heard it here. It's not too late. More choir news. You were one of the clinicians for the Southwest ACDA. It was the collegiate group, right? The collegiate a cappella group. It's the first time that Southwest ACDA has had a collegiate a cappella honor choir or a high school a cappella honor choir. Can you go into what that experience was like, and should Southwest ACDA do that again? I think your answer is going to be yes on that, but go into that experience.
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, it was the vision of President Jeff Murdoch, who he and I actually lived in the same house in college.
What?
We've been friends. Yeah, we've been friends for a very long time, and he reached out to me a couple years ago and was like, "Hey, I want to really push some boundaries here. Things like a cappella like need to be more at the forefront of what we're doing. How can we make that happen?" And so we kind of brainstormed and came up with this idea. And I would say for the first year, it was really successful. Yeah. We had to work really hard to get people to sign up. I think especially in the college level, you've got people, like kids have to find the money and fly and get the hotels or whatever. It's a little different than when they're in high school. And just because it's something new. But like for them to take that risk, I think was really bold and really brave. And the empowerment that kids get, and I say kids, I mean young people, in an ensemble like that, whether they're in high school or college, it's it's not that it's a better experience than when you're in an honor choir of 300 people. It's not a better experience, but it is a different experience. And it's an experience that's a little bit more interpersonal and probably a little bit more intimate in terms of the relationships and the amount of individual responsibility that is thrust upon a singer. And so as somebody who sounds like you all feel this way too, as someone who believes very strongly in empowering my students to have that strong level of individual musicianship, that's something that I think contemporary a cappella does better than really almost anything else that we have at our disposal as choir directors. So that was a really great experience. The ACDA production team, Leah Browning, Jeff Murdoch, they just knocked it out of the park, and I was thrilled that it happened. Of course, I hope they do it again. We're already talking. They can't do it at National next year because it was already set, because these things happen like way in advance. But my good friend Rob Dietz, who was also one of the high school honor choir directors, he is the National R&R chair for contemporary a cappella, and he's already in talks with them about making it happen at the next National ACDA. So hopefully it's something that we'll see start to kind of spread out throughout the country.
Who did the arrangement of Fast Car?
Oh, that was me.
That was so good, dude. It was so good. I thought it was you, but yeah, that obviously by the crowd reaction, you knew it was a hit. That was my favorite piece of that whole concert. They crushed it, and you crushed it on arranging that.
Well done.
Oh, well, thank you. That was really fun. That's one of my favorites. I did that one for a group of former students called June. There's a video of it on YouTube, and yeah, that was a really special one. So thanks.
Now it's time to shout out our first sponsor, GIA Publications and Walton Music. GIA Publications is a family-owned company with over 10,000 choral and instrumental editions in print and a wide variety of music education resources.
Walton Music, one of the catalogs in the GIA family, is one of the world's leading choral music publishers. With a catalog spanning over 6 decades and music from across the globe, Walton editions are performed by choirs worldwide.
That's right. You can find Walton choral editions at waltonmusic.com and music education resources and books at giamusic.com.
Thanks again to GIA Publications and Walton Music for sponsoring today's episode.
Now it's time for our next segment, Embrace It or
Erase It.
Erase It. This is where we take something in the choral music world or the contemporary a cappella world, and we either say that we're going to embrace it or erase it. Now, since we have JD Frizzell here, this is mainly going to be about a cappella, or it's going to be about arranging and composing and all that kind of stuff. So, the first one, Danny, take it away.
ICHSA, which stands for International Championship of High School a cappella.
Congratulations.
Is that it?
You got it
Okay,
this time.
Got it. Okay. Embrace it or erase it?
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Embrace
it.
Aw, nice. JD, why are you embracing this?
So look, the thing about any competition is you just have to understand that that's what you're getting into. You are ultimately putting your group, your season, your concert cycle, whatever, in the hands of a few people who are going to give their opinions, and those opinions are going to dictate probably the rest of your season. And I've seen a lot of a cappella competitions. What they've built at Varsity Vocals, no one is going to compete with that. To be able to do that at that scale and with that scope is extremely difficult. And I think they do as good of a job as you can possibly do with that many groups and with that number of events. And the thing that I always see people say about these events is like something with the mics wasn't right, or something, the judges' comments weren't fair or whatever. And, my comment is always like, well, I mean, you kind of knew that was what that's what you're getting into, right? Like, you've got 10 groups who are coming the first time to an event, and the person who's running the sound is hearing it for the first time and mixing it. And, it's just, it's going to be what it's going to be. And the 3 people that are listening to you, I mean, take any 3 choral directors and play a recording and ask them to give a score on a rubric or something. You're going to get 3 very different answers. And that's just the nature of it. There's a lot of subjectivity to it. So the thing I would say to a high school choir director specifically, who is thinking, are you going to do it or are you not, is the value that a competition provides. Is that something that is of value to your group? Does that align with the goals that you have for them that year? And does it align with the goals that you have for them, long term? And if it does, and for a lot of groups, they need that. They need something to get their community to galvanize around. They need something to drum up community support or administrative support or parental support. For a lot of college groups, it's like, well, the only thing that's going to motivate all these kids to rehearse 6 hours a week at 10 o'clock at night is going to be winning something. And so there's a lot of value to it. It pushes a lot of people to levels of excellence and musicianship that they normally wouldn't. And if those aren't things that you need, then it's not for you. I mean, people ask all the time, like, hey, like, and I mean, I've heard it through the grapevine too, like, why doesn't one voice compete? Like, are they afraid? And I'm like, no. I mean, we've done it. And it's just like, at this point, we only really have anything to lose, right? Like, I feel like if we don't make finals or place at finals or win, it would be like losing for us. And so for us, we have a lot of other things that we need to do. We sing a lot of music. And so to focus on like a 3-song set for a considerable portion of the year for us doesn't really make a lot of sense. So we're going to invest our time in other ways. And I think there are a lot of directors who are in similar positions. And that's why I have built the events that I have built, like the National Acapella and Choral Convention, and then our One Voice Invitational. They're non-competitive events because I have learned over the years that there's no need to like compete with another competition. There's nothing competitive about the events that we build at all. It's all about growing musicians and growing relationships between groups. And so there you go. There's my very long answer to I see it just say, and why I would say embrace it. If you're going to do it, embrace it.
Every reason that I was thinking that I would embrace it for is the exact reasons that JD said: galvanizing community support, something look toward elevating levels of musicianship that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. I think that's spot on, and I love his idea that so it was kind of an embrace it or erase it answer. It's if it's not for you, erase it. If those aren't your goals, erase it. But if that does align with your program and its goals, and embrace it. So yeah. And I know it's been good for my community, just literally for those reasons. So
yeah. So this next one, JD, is all about composing and arranging and all that kind of stuff. We're not necessarily going to say embrace it or erase it, but finale or Sibelius or other if you use something else. We'll do 3, 2, 1, and then you'll say finale or Sibelius or other if you use something else.
3, 2, 1.
Sibelius.
Finale.
Oh no.
Oh man. Uh-oh. Well, it's been fun, you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm kidding.
So have you used both, I'm assuming?
Yes, I have.
And so why do you prefer finale?
I've used finale since 2000, like the actual year, the year 2000, and I just cannot, like, I can do the shortcuts that I have, like, tweaked over the years. I can do finale so fast, and it's just, for me, it's very native, it's very fluid, it's very fluent. I tried for a while to do Sibelius because, like, a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, it's so much better or whatever. And it's just different enough to where, like, I was like, why would I learn something new? It's not like I had a problem. You know, I can write a finale chart out pretty quickly. The only thing I would say, I have used Note Flight a lot for music theory, like AP music theory assignments, as well as pop arrangements. So I do all of our pop arrangements, or a lot of them, each year, especially for the middle school choir, because they need like specific voicings. And so I will go into Note Flight and do like the take the piano vocals that you can buy, and then I'll arrange it for the very limited range, you know, whatever middle school voicing that I need to make it for. And there's kind of a dual benefit there if it ends up sounding a lot better than a stock chart would sound. But also then, like on Note Flight, I mean, it takes 2 seconds because all of it's already there. All the music is already there. And you can turn around and sell it. Like you can turn around and put it up on a marketplace and sell it on Sheet Music Plus and Note Flight Marketplace and things like that. So I have used Note Flight for larger pieces, and anything web-based, if there's lag or you lose connection or whatever, it becomes a very angering loss of productivity.
I said Sibelius, and the reason I said that, when I was in college, when I first started arranging, I used Finale Notepad, and it was free, and I would just write, you know, my a cappella arrangements on there. And then Susan LeBar, you know, came to our town whenever she moved here, whenever her husband Cameron became the director of choral studies at Missouri State. And she used Sibelius, and you know, she kind of talked to me because she got her start in arranging by arranging for the collegiate a cappella group at Missouri State a cappella, and that's kind of how I got my start too, was with baritones and a cappella. And so she turned me on to Sibelius, and I was already using Pro Tools, which is by Avid, and so Sibelius is by Avid and everything, and so I just went ahead and purchased it. And you know, Susan is, you know, the editor at Walton Music, and she publishes a lot of my stuff, and so it's a lot easier to just send a Sibelius file to her since she uses that. But you know, I don't think I've ever, well, I think it's been a long time since I've used the full Finale like program, so maybe I would be turned on to it if I actually use that. But I ended up buying Sibelius, and so that's what I used, because people in college were always like, why are you using Finale Notepad? Go get Sibelius. And I was like, no, this is free and it's easy. But then I switched, so I apologize for disagreeing with you.
There's no apology needed. It's sort of like asking somebody that has a beautiful lawn, like, you know, why do you use a different lawnmower than I use? Like, who cares? Like, does the lawn look good? Great, you know?
Yeah. Now it's time to shout out our next sponsor, Endeavor Music Publishing. Endeavor is dedicated to publishing the best in new and innovative choral music, and to the idea that composers should earn the majority of their music sales.
That's the great thing about this company. Royalties for Endeavor composers are over 5 times the industry standards. That's a lot. Woo. So you can trust that your purchase supports artists who created it.
Endeavor is currently seeking out emerging talent and established composers. Do you want to earn 5 times the amount? Go with Endeavor. If you are interested in having one of your pieces published, visit the submissions page on their website.
Before finalizing the rep for your next concert, visit EndeavorMusicPublishing.com and peruse their titles. Thanks again to Endeavor Music Publishing for sponsoring today's episode. All right, JD, well, in this portion of the episode, we're going to just pick your brain about stuff. Now, I want to say these questions are for our listeners, but I think
they're for
Blake
you.
And I know exactly where this is going. I'm just trying to extract your knowledge and put it out there for the benefit of myself and for the listeners,
Yeah, other
course.
people will
No,
benefit
of course. But I'm just thinking, like, I was just thinking through it a couple days ago. I'm like, okay, what do I want to know from him? And this is great because we kind of have him locked down. Like, there's nowhere he can go at this point. He's in that screen. And he's not moving from that screen, so we can just get the information that we need. Yes. All right. So
He's trapped.
First off, and I think this would be helpful for a lot of people. So obviously, you know, One Voice is the flagship program, but we know as educators, it's just the manifestation of what happens day in, day out, the daily grind, how you build a program from the bottom up, how you make those singers great. Because we know that it's not just like you have this magical wand. You're like, all right, now I have a great contemporary a cappella ensemble. I know that as a fact. It's how you build up your singers and what leads to that point. So can you... I worded the question. Can you give us an overview of your choir program? But you could also approach it. What is the building that happens that lead your program into the success that it has today?
Sure. So I think like any good high school a cappella group that you hear, they are a direct result of really high quality traditional choral instruction. There's more that has to happen, right, on the a cappella end. There's some other skill sets that you need to have as a director. But I have always told people when they ask, how do you make one voice sound the way that they sound? It's like, well, choir every day, you know? I believe like my approach is very much in building up the skill set and confidence level of the individual singer. And of course you do that not only through the daily instruction and the structure that you provide, but also the environment, the culture, the community that you develop. I think that's really important too. So in my choirs, I do a lot of things to make them comfortable with themselves, comfortable making sound in front of other people, comfortable taking chances and taking risks in front of their peers. And I think that's a big part of it. I know, both of your work pretty well, and I know you all are pretty serious vocal pedagogues. I think our probably job number one or job number two as a choir director, it's somewhere up there at the top, is we are a teacher of group voice, right? We are teaching how to sing, and we are vocal pedagogues, and I think that's something. The best programs, like when you look at the top 1%, it is the difference is always that the director knows how to teach the voice and knows how to get people to sing really well and in a healthy manner. So that's really important to me. I use a lot of tools that are probably similar to you all, and then the warm up is really important for me. So the warm-up is front-loaded in the year. So at the beginning of the year, I'll spend 20 to 30 minutes maybe on warm-ups, and that's out of a 45-minute class because I teach a lot of the whys and the hows when we're doing the warm-ups. And my warm-up routine starts with like an attention getter and then goes straight to breathing and then ties breathing into phonation and then goes into focus and following and ensemble, and then finally starts to hit on things like articulation and dynamics, and then eventually does some range extension, which is what half of directors I think that's what warm-ups are in their entirety. And then, maybe you go into tuning or something like that, but solfege and then into daily sight reading. I would also say that sight reading, like the building of literacy skills, is paramount to the success of our group. I have gotten a lot of flack over the years for using rehearsal tracks for one voice. And the thing that I tell everybody is, first of all, it's no different than you standing at the front of a class or sitting behind a piano and banging out notes and singing it and making a lot of mistakes, honestly. Like most of us will make at least a few mistakes, even if we're really good within a class period. If you pre-make those practice tracks and you sing them, they are 100% accurate. You can provide a lot of information in those sung rehearsal tracks. I mean, whether it's me or Rob Dietz or somebody else that's doing those rehearsal tracks, they're going to be tuned, so they're going to be in tune. They're going to be sung with the kind of tone that we want. They're going to be sung with the kind of diction that we want, with the phrasing that we want, right? I mean, all of these things, the exact vowel that you want to have, and they're going to emulate all of those things. But the other thing that I will tell people who say, that's cheating, or like, I don't like that approach, it's that you can't do what we do learning through tracks because we do it quickly. We learn it in one rehearsal. And I mean, they're learning a 4-minute, 5-minute song with their 1-2 apart a cappella in one rehearsal. They can only do that because their eye, looking at the music on the page, combined with the oral emphasis of what they hear, is really strong. That combination is what makes it successful. So I've seen groups use rehearsal tracks and to nowhere near the level of success because they don't have the background with the reading. Their brain doesn't look at the page and see the patterns and understand what it is that it's hearing. It just hears things and goes, okay, I'm going to try to regurgitate that the best that I can. And that's just, those neuromuscular pathways are not going to be as strong as they would if you also are actually good at reading the music. So that's also, I think, really important to building one voice into what they are as well. And then the last piece I would say is that I've spent a lot of time learning about contemporary vocal technique. And so this is non-bel canto singing. It is, I know this is a shock, Blake, to like the choral profession, but believe it or not, like you really like shouldn't sing everything with the same tonal approach. And luckily, I think the choral profession as a whole over the past maybe 5 to 10 years has really experienced an awakening about their acceptance of non-Western cultures in music. It's not only something that people are like, oh, I mean, remember that people used to say things like world music, which like now use, like someone says world music and you're like, ooh, but there's so much music from around the world that is not from a bel canto vocal production tradition. And so to sing music in that way would be inappropriate as well. And as directors, we're trying to not only teach something that's going to be an accurate representation of the culture, but also I think there's an expectation for the audience that they hear something that feels authentic. And so that is a tool that I use as well now with the contemporary music, because I do a lot of the non-bel canto music with my choirs as well on purpose. Number one, because I think it's important, but number two, for the tonal and the vocal reasons. And so I teach this, there's a technique called spectrum singing. It was developed by Dr. Erin Hackle. She's at the University of Colorado, Denver, and she's the best person I know in the world at teaching contemporary voice. She's an opera singer who learned that it didn't work for non-opera. And so she developed this incredible method that has all these systems in it, but basically it's understanding and being able to manipulate different levels of the larynx. So, high and low positions of the larynx. She has 4 positions of the larynx. And then at the same time, you've got different placements here. And so a combination of this and this, she has these different definitions of how that changes your tone and different styles of music. Where do you find those materials? So I believe I heard that there's a sponsor, Walton or GIA, maybe. GIA has a book, that contemporary a cappella book that I talked about, that you mentioned in my bio. She has a whole chapter that she wrote in that book about spectrum singing, and I think it's the most comprehensive overview. It's pretty detailed about spectrum singing and how it works. So I highly recommend that you check that out if you're interested in it. She also has some videos on YouTube about spectrum singing, but just absolutely game-changing stuff if you want to learn how to empower your singers to be healthy, be able to belt, which I still contend most choir directors who say belting is unhealthy or you shouldn't belt, they couldn't physiologically explain what belting even is. So it is an amazing technique, the spectrum singing. So highly recommend people check that out and start to learn it.
It's funny that you'd say that. I actually thought when someone used the term belt, I was offended by that term. I was like, belt? We don't belt. But then when you really think about what it is, it's higher frequency that's happening in your vocal folds, and it's a higher amplitude as well. It's more intense. So I think the question comes, how do you support that sound in a healthy way? And I think any strategy that's used to do that is a good strategy. It's just a matter of how to do it. So I think literature like that really really illuminates things that you would not think about otherwise. And it's crazy to think about, like in typical bel canto singing, you think of a lower larynx position, and it's crazy to think that sometimes the larynx position is too low in certain cases, but it's actually true. Even in traditional bel canto, if your larynx position, if you're rocking too much, it's going to come across as overly covered. It's going to come across as back. At the end of the day, what it comes down to, I think, is balance, right? And how do you make the balance work in singing? And then the balance changes for certain types of music. And I think if we think in terms of balance, then it's good, because then singing becomes less about bel canto and it becomes more about just healthy phonation and how to go about that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even use those terms. I haven't used those terms in years, things like bel canto or whatever. I don't even use like chest voice and belt or anything like that. I use a combination of placement and larynx position. So like the lowest laryngeal position is just, down here, fully down, way down here. And I mean, the only people that really use that position extensively are like male opera singers. And even then, there's some times when it's appropriate to raise that a little bit. For quote belting, right? We're just going to raise that larynx maybe 2/3 of the way, so that we get higher harmonics when we're singing. And again, that's just what we associate with like a good pop or belt sound is the presence of those higher harmonics. So there's a lot of voice science that I think people have just like kind of slept on or just ignored, or I don't know, not wanted to embrace or learn, but it's real. Rob Dietz is one of my really close friends and colleagues, and he and I have presented a couple of times at ACDA on this type of voice science. And so
does that exist on YouTube or something along those lines, that presentation? I know a lot of people would like to see, or the content of that. Have you ever put it on like a podcast or something? Is there any way to direct us toward that?
I mean, I have the actual presentation, but it's just like a PowerPoint. Sure. At some point maybe we'll put the whole thing with us like speaking and singing and giving all the examples.
Choir guys. I would love
both of you come on and just give the presentation.
I think that information is so valuable for a lot of people. And honestly, here's how I feel personally. I feel like teaching contemporary a cappella has really risen my game. Oh my
gosh, that sounds great.
Riz.
Dr. Riz.
Yeah, let's say it actually risen my game.
Dr. Frizzell.
Let's say elevate.
Elevate. Risivate. No, I'm just stuck on the first thing. Yeah. I feel like it's upped my game as a choral director in general, because it's caused me to be more conscious of the elasticity of the voice and how to maneuver in certain situations. So I think any training like this is invaluable for all teachers out there. So I think it would be amazing if we could ever coordinate that, not necessarily like tomorrow, but at some point with you and Rob kind of presenting some of those concepts for a greater audience like this in a public forum. I think that'd be really key.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, can we talk about the thumbs up that it's happening on your screen? It happened earlier.
Was that for a reason? Did you give us a thumbs up?
Can you do a thumbs up on your here? Like, just put your thumb up. Okay, now do there. Ooh,
whoa,
look at that!
Happened automatically?
That's crazy.
That's
wow.
insane.
What does it do? It like pops something up.
Can you put a thumb
end?
Down? Nothing happened. Thumbs.
Oh! It's like,
wow,
is it not doing
sick.
things on your screen?
No.
Oh my gosh!
On your side.
Well, I can't wait for you to see the video. It's
what
it's got
is
like
it? Other
speech.
things? What is there a dab icon?
I don't know. Probably not.
That'd be sick.
Yeah, try a dab. See if anything happens.
No,
there it is.
Oh,
okay.
it did it! No, I'm just kidding.
It didn't do anything. Okay, JD. In your experience, well, I've got a couple questions about recording contemporary a cappella. First of all, whenever you're recording an album with one voice, are you bringing the engineer to you guys, to your school? Or are you going to the studio? Or are you the engineer that's recording them and then you send it off to a producer? Like, what is that process like?
Sure. So I track them. We usually go to a studio. There's one nearby that we've worked with for a long time. And I just go in and they trust me and we know each other well. And so I track the students. It usually takes a few days, 4 or 5 days. And then I just take all the sessions and I zip them up and I send them over to our post-production team. And then from there, we work in collaboration through the edits and the mixes.
Nice. Another question, going back to your practice tracks, are you using Melodyne, or like, are you tuning every single practice track that you and Rob do? So you're using Melodyne on all of them?
Yeah, so everything's going to be Melodyned, and it's always going to be based from the MIDI that we pull from the Sibelius or the Finale file. All of that's really important for us for a few reasons. Number one, you can set all your tempos and things like that at the front end, so you can really show like what's, if something's going to change tempo, how and why and how much. Also, like, we create those tempo maps from that same MIDI. And what we do is, after we've tracked in the studio, like we're about to film tonight, we've already filmed earlier this week in the same outfits with the lights on the stage. And then we combine all the audio that's pre-recorded with the audio from the live and the video, so that it all lines up, and we can create something that sounds really professional and sounds really great, and looks really cool. So like on the dress rehearsal we did on Wednesday, I had 2 people with steady cams like in their face, like up on the stage, getting really cool up close shots. I stole that approach from, if you ever watched during the pandemic, the Disney Plus version of Hamilton that they did. That was like, it just seems like a really great live performance. 90% of that was shot with no audience there, with people standing on the stage with a bunch of cameras and pre-recording and stuff. And then they did one, with an audience there to make it feel live. So I was like, I like that approach. It's pretty cool. But since we sing with in-ear and click,
that was going to be my next question.
Everything needs to line up. And so then all the tempos are really consistent. And I think that's really helpful, as well. But, it just ensures that there's a lot of consistency. And, I was having this conversation just the other day with a colleague who was like, I kind of think it's cheating. And I was like, well, I understand that. I said, but like, Pentatonics does it, and the Swingles do it, and Voice Play does it, and Take 6 does it. I mean, any professional band or vocal group in the world, they're going to use click and cue. And they don't do it because they need it to, like, quote, like, know the song or be able to sing along. They just do it because they want to make sure that their performances are consistent regardless of where they are. And since One Voice performs a lot and we go a lot of different places, we need to make sure that we deliver a consistently high-level product every time we sing. So, that's part of also why I will only do certain gigs and certain performances, is because, like, it's rare that I'll agree to a performance where we don't get to bring our in-ears and our mics, because, it's a whole different thing. Not that we can't. I mean, like, at the National Acapella and Choral Convention about a month ago, we not only sang without click and cue, but we took all 8 songs from our album and condensed them into a 10-minute medley. And just glued them all back to back. So, I mean, it's not that you can't, and it's not that, it's not that you use it as a crutch, but all of these things are just tools that, if the foundation is strong musically and vocally, it allows you to just hold a high bar at a more consistent pace, which is important to me.
Do you have like a digital soundboard that is programmed to like bring out the soloists at different times, or is there somebody like running it that's doing all that live? You're doing it live. Nice.
Yeah, it's just me. I mean, ultimately, that has always been sort of a pipe dream for me, because you can control all that. Like, you can either set a MIDI controller. You could also do that with Ableton. We tried that one year. So, one day, but ultimately things like that come down to my bandwidth, and that stuff is time consuming. So I end up just mixing all the shows. And
that's awesome. And then whenever you're recording your live performances in post, do you try to Melodyne those, or is there too much extra noise, or do you have a gate on all those mics so that way you don't have the extra noise?
Yeah, there's always a gate. And editing live audio for a cappella is extremely challenging. There's always bleed. There's always a ton of extra sound. You're going to get audio from other singers that are within close proximity. You're going to get some room noise, some audience noise. So, I mean, those editors, they have a big job. And the audio, I mean, you can, like in Melodyne, you can go in. I mean, Melodyne is polyphonic now, so like you can go in and kind of clean that up. But it's a lot of work. So like we'll do it a little bit. If we are going to do like we released like a live video from our invitational last year, a couple weeks ago, and that was done using all just the live audio, and the editing was probably, I don't know how many hours that editing took, but it was significant. But the key with like editing live a cappella sound to make it still sound authentic, because that's the thing, like you don't hear intonation problems as much when you're live because there's an energy of the room. There's the space of the room that sort of buffers some of those things. And then when you're just hearing it through a board mix by itself in isolation, you hear every single little tuning problem. So like anybody who says, I just want to hear raw, audio from the board, I'm like, no, you don't. Like not even Take 6 wants to hear their own raw audio. Like that's just not something anyone wants to hear. So we will always tune a little bit, but if there's an art to it, like it can't be. I've heard a lot of groups who record, and I've heard them in real life, and then I'll hear the recording and I'm like, ooh, you don't sound like that live. You don't want people to say that, right? I want people to hear one voice and be like, yeah, that was my experience of what they sounded like live. So you can't go in with Melodyne and just do a blanket tuning. Like you can't just go in and go 90% or 80%. It has to be really nuanced. It has to be one note at a time. And good editors can do that really quickly. And we have great editors who work with us.
If you don't have all the resources that you do, if you don't know how to mix live audio, as a director, if you're creating a submission recording for maybe a state conference or something with your a cappella group, what, in your opinion, is the best way to mic that a cappella group? Because again, you're probably not going to want all of the live sound or all of the live, mix in that recording. So what would you do, and maybe what have you done in the past to create the best high quality recording of that a cappella choir for submissions?
All right, so there are two ways you can go about it. I mean, the thing, like you can't have any editing anyways on a conference submission, so that's really challenging for a cappella. But I would say the first way you can do it, and this is the way most groups do, you just have somebody in an audience with a cell phone or a recorder, and you just grab the room audio from the middle of the room. This is going to buffer some of those pitch problems that you would have from the raw board feed. It captures some of the audience energy as well. And I think this is how most groups get a pretty decent recording that they would use for a conference submission. The other way that you can do it, and we've done this a few times, is when you go to a acoustically a little more reverberant space, not like a chapel or something with like wood floors that would be like ideal for choral, but something with a little bit of reverb. And then you'll give a microphone or just some kind of amplification device to the bass and the VP and the soloist, and you just give them a little boost. You just sort of, elevate it just a little bit. Or you can use like 3 room mics, like just set up three cheap room mics and put them around the group and just put the bass and the VP near one of them, put the soloist near the other one, right? And then have the other one somewhere else. And then you can just kind of adjust those levels to make sure that they sound like a pretty good balance. Either one of those ways is going to get a pretty similar result. I wouldn't try to do anything fancier than that.
So JD, let's say, a lot of the contemporary a cappella groups that exist, they do participate in some festival or a competition, something to be adjudicated. And I'm sure that you've done a level of some sort of adjudication at a few different levels, probably choral and a cappella as well.
Probably a few times.
Probably a few times, once or twice, So what key qualities or elements do you look for, let's say in specifically, let's say contemporary a cappella ensembles performance? What are the things that stick out to you in a positive way?
First thing is tone. If the tone isn't a healthy tone, we're done. It's not going to happen. I have a hard time hearing anything that's not a good tone, and I have a hard time getting past things that are not very in tune. So
Do you feel
those
the same
two
way?
things.
I feel like that was a previous episode.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
said the same thing in a previous episode.
Those two things are non-negotiable, and they're probably 90% for me of the way I'm going to judge a group. And then obviously you're looking for style, you're looking for the solo delivery, you're looking for energy and stage presence. Usually there are videos that you're watching when you're judging contemporary a cappella. The same thing for a choir. Like, you can sense their energy through their diction, their phrasing, their musicality. But like, honestly, I mean, I've been judging ACDA stuff recently, and I'll just say like, within 20 or 30 seconds of kind of like how a group is going to be by the 3-minute mark, just from hearing the first few phrases, intonation, tone. Absolutely. It's like, I mean, and that's honestly, those are the biggest, to me, those are the hardest things to teach. They require the most amount of skill and the most amount of craft to consistently have happen within an ensemble. So I think as an adjudicator, it's also so rare to hear ensembles that have just that impeccable tone and intonation. I have heard lots of great a cappella groups that have tons of energy, really good diction, and maybe even like a killer soloist or a VP or bass or all of those things. And then their tone is like not good, like really like bright or tinny or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it's just I'm not going to score that group as high. The same thing, if it's all of the above, but there's not a single in tune chord, I just have a hard time with that. I think our ears, and it's not just me, like, our ears are more used to things being tuned now than even 10 years ago. Everything is so heavily tuned in pop music, and even in popular culture, in commercials, in things on YouTube, just your general pop release on Spotify, heavily tuned. So our ears, I think, are now they're more used to hearing things that are way closer to the center of whatever the actual frequency of that pitch is, than ever before in history. I don't know if you guys ever go back and listen to like songs from the 90s that you loved. Like, go listen to Hootie and the Blowfish and you'll be like,
yeah,
there's not a single note in tune. How are they doing that?
Sure. Yeah, that's wild. But it definitely exists. I even think of I think of the opera scene, and I think of like all these iconic recordings of Pavarotti singing, and then when you hear these, because Pavarotti is the GOAT, and he had perfect pitch as well. And when you hear someone else do it, like, you just always have that in the back of your head. You're like, oh, that's not quite the same. So it's become increasingly more important for sure.
Yeah. How, as with one voice and everything, how do you approach choreography in your performances?
Yeah, so I have one rule with choreography for my group or any group, and it's like the Hippocratic Oath for doctors. It's do no harm. So the movement cannot negatively impact the singing in any way, shape, or form. And besides that, pretty much anything goes. But for me, I'm always looking to eliminate. So like, we have an amazing choreographer. Her name is Sam Powell. She's worked with us for years, and she even knows, like, she's going to put a lot in there, and then I'm going to strip down things that feel a little extra or unnecessary as we go along. Ultimately, I'm looking less for creating certain moments or like making movement that reflects the words or something, and more of a broad scale, what do I want the audience to feel like when they watch us? If they were just watching us and didn't hear us, what would the visuals make them feel like? To me, it's much more visceral than it is like granular.
So now shifting gears a bit, so talking about contemporary a cappella especially, could you share some, and I know you literally have a book on this, so I'm sure you could share quite a few, but could you share some specific vocal exercises that you find effective in contemporary a cappella settings, let's say versus a traditional classroom?
So I'm gonna throw a little bit this question back a little bit at you and tell you that I don't normally in one voice, like in an a cappella rehearsal, because it is extra, it is on top of a choral rehearsal. I don't spend a ton of time in those rehearsals using a lot of different techniques that are specific to contemporary a cappella. It's honestly just about making choices that are more stylistically appropriate. I do use a lot of spectrum language when I'm in a rehearsal, and I use a ton of visual when I'm in an a cappella rehearsal. So like a lot of shorthand visual cues. I'll show laryngeal placement. I will show how bright something needs to be. You can show a vowel a lot easier than you can explain a vowel. And so, I'll do all of this stuff real time. If you watch us, so I use a 5-step method that I've developed for rehearsing contemporary a cappella groups. And the first 2 steps have nothing to do with anyone singing together yet. And so by the time you get to the 3rd step, this is like the first group rehearsal. And in that rehearsal, I would say 90% of the information that I share or impart to the ensemble is done non-verbally while they're singing. And I feel like that is so much more effective because it doesn't interrupt the flow of the actual singing. They can keep doing it in real time, but also because it is visceral and they see it and their brain processes visual. Our brain just processes visual information really fast, and I think really effectively. And so when they see it, I often, like, because of our warm-up that we talked about earlier, they are used to mirroring that when they see me do a movement. And then not only will they sing that, they will then sort of build that into their body. And so the next time we sing it, they don't even, like, a lot of times, like, they'll write it down because they'll see me glance over and they want to make sure that I see that they're writing it down, but they really don't even have to most of the time. And there's so much information that I'll give them that that it just builds it in at a really deep level and really fast. The more skilled a singer is, you all know this, the more skilled a singer is, the more feedback they can take and process, especially on a first run. So like we will in the first step 3 rehearsal, we'll sing through the song 3, 4, 5 times. And I probably will say all of 20 or 30 words. And we'll make massive strides forward in the music through those runs because of the nonverbal. I'll also say this. This is not a technique more than it is an approach. This step 2 part of my process has really evolved over the last couple of years. And now it's that I give them a lot of notes in the score about phrasing and dynamics and things like that. This is after they've learned the notes and the rhythms, by the way. So step 2, they will then go and record themselves using a cloud-based recorder that I have, and it's a DAW that I can see all of their parts. And then I go back through and I just listen and I speak. And so I can give them individual vocal feedback, and I can do it pretty quickly, like in my car or like, wherever I have time. But same thing, like I can give them a lot of information by speaking and then sometimes singing or modeling as I listen to them sing their part. And by the time we've gone through them learning their part, which is step 1, step 2, they're singing it out. I mean, it's something else I should say about that step 2 that is the real magic of step 2. They have to sing all the way through that piece and be happy with the take. I mean, they can cut in, but like what it does is it forces them to practice enough to truly be competent. If they miss a phrase, they can't just be like, yeah, just like if you're in a choral rehearsal, like who's going to know? Like the rest of the tenors didn't miss that note. All right. So it like holds them to a really high level of individual accountability. So by the time we actually get to that group rehearsal, I'm not fixing things like that. And I think that's what allows me to take a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah, the self-reflection part of it is I think huge, because you can't like listen to yourself and hear something not great and then be like, oh shoot, that's fine. It is what it is. Let's just move on. You're going to want to do something about that. So you said cloud-based program. So I noticed this when I sent you the clip of my group and you gave me feedback. I noticed you probably use that seemed consistent with the feedback that you gave my ensemble. So what is this thing called that you're using?
So I use Soundtrap. And they have a package for educators, and it's pretty reasonable in terms of cost. And then so I just get enough seats for all my students, and I've actually used it some in my choirs too, to less success. I haven't really figured that one out yet. It doesn't work quite as well for choral or for kids that are less skilled or experienced, I would say. But Soundtrap, it is awesome, and it allows. They don't get to hear the feedback that everybody else gets. But as the teacher, I get to see everybody's recordings and give my feedback in one place. And so that, to me, like that ease of use is huge, because we don't have a lot of free time.
Yeah, I think so. If I were to say, like, I'm taking so much away from everything that you're saying, the thing that really is registering with me right now is to use this process. So right now, the process that I have, I mean, it works, but it's not as efficient. It's not as good. You know, I typically say, all right, sing your part, submit it via Canvas with this track playing in the background. It's like a 2-device thing. And it's good because I am able to give students feedback, but it's not like that live feedback in the moment. And I've noticed, and I have done this with students, like a student will say, can you listen to this with me? And I'll listen to it and I'll give them real-time feedback on the spot. And it's like a game changer for them. They take so much away from that. And I can imagine like making an audio recording like that is so personal. I love the fact that you're even saying, and I know you're a busy guy, you're able to do it in the car, you're able to do it here and there. And I think that's awesome. The quality of feedback is so important for every ensemble. And if you want to get them to a higher level, the feedback, I think the feedback and the level they will achieve are neck and neck. The higher the feedback is, the higher level they will achieve. So I think that's a great way to do that. That's awesome.
So when starting a contemporary a cappella group, I don't have one at my school, but maybe someday we'll get a feeder into your a cappella group. What foundational elements do you consider essential for setting up that group for success?
All right, so the makeup of the group is super important. The voicing doesn't matter as much as the skill and talent level of the singers. So let's say you have like 4 sopranos, 6 altos, and then 2 tenors and a bass. Fine. But if they're all the same level or a similar level of ability, you're going to have a solid ensemble. The thing I see people make the biggest mistake is that they'll be like, no, we have to have 4 sopranos, 4 altos, 4 tenors, and 4 basses. And there are 2 singers in a couple of the sections that are just absolutely nowhere near at the same level of skill. And so that limits the group. The lowest skill level member of an a cappella group, because there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, they are going to be the limiter for that group's success. So the voicing can be whatever it needs to be. The size of the group needs to be the maximum number of singers that you have that are at that ability level or higher. So if you have, like, the reason we've always had 12 or 13 is because we usually have about 12 or 13 people that can sustain that level of singing. And so that's been the size for us. Then the other thing I would say is the arrangement choices that you make are really, really important. And to your point earlier about not having a middle school a cappella group and how that would even work and the bass and everything else, I'm going to send you, after the episode is over, I'm going to send you a few videos of a middle school a cappella group that my wife actually directed back in the day before she taught college. And I think it will make you go like, I guess middle schoolers can sound really good with a cappella. But the key is, she had one of our good friends arrange for those voices. And so you have to keep their voices within, a pretty limited range. And I do a vocal guide for my ensemble every year. And I could show you that, but it's basically like I will make a recording of them singing a solo and then kind of singing a scale, and then I'll put the person's name, JD, and then I'll put their low extreme range, and then I'll put like their chest voice or their comfortable belt range, low, their high belt range, and then extended or head voice, and then a bunch of notes about that singer. And then the arrangement can be done really accurately. If you're using a lot of doubling or tripling or quadrupling of parts, then I would do that, but I would also do another tab in that vocal guide for the section as a whole. Okay, tenors, here's the range that you can use or whatever. If you go above an E, it's gonna sound like a train whistle. Like, these are things that like arrangers need to know. And I mean, one voice sounding good has less to do with maybe what we do well and more to do with what we're avoiding. Like, I'm just not going to show you any of our weaknesses.
Yeah. And it's funny, this is consistent with I think of the Adrian Kirtley thing and his amazing work. So he does these intricate, crazy period pieces, but he revoices literally everything. He rewrites he edits the score completely so that it works for all of their voices. And he's thinking, well, I have this many basses, this many good sopranos, they can sing this line, this goes there. But it really has to do with the score study and how he's processing and how he's putting it on paper, which sets the students up for success.
Well, this acapella conversation has been fantastic. And this episode is a long one, but it is packed full of just goodies. And I know...
and tell your friends, if you know people that are in contemporary acapella, have them listen to it. Have them check it out, because there was a lot to unpack in this episode. And it could be vital for a lot of directors out there, even beyond contemporary acapella. I think it's really relevant.
Yeah, again, I don't have a group, but I've learned a lot, and I just have benefited from this. So thank you, JD.
I'm going to be listening back, actually.
No, this will be one that I'll go back to.
Even like the last episode, even though like we were literally
it came
talking
from your
about
brain.
It, I kept listening to him like, oh yeah, that's a good point, and I literally said it. I was like, oh yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it's the same concept.
That's one of the best things about this podcast is like I take things that you've been saying and I apply it to my classroom. I learn things from our conversations. So, but it's also just so beneficial to have a guest that we get to learn so much from. So thank you so much for being here, JD.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, I listened to the whole episode with Adrian, and I admire his work a lot. I saw them at ACDA a couple years ago and was just like, whoa. But to see like the intricacy of, does he make you guys? He made me feel really lazy. I feel like I don't do anything. Like watch I listen to Adrian,
the same
I was like,
way.
I mean, we go about it in our own ways. His processes are so defined and so specific, and I think it's great. But like in the same token, I don't think all my processes. I don't think I could do his process and be successful as he is. I have to kind of take what he does and adjust it to make it work. For my own self. And literally, as I said that, he is texting us right now.
What is he sending?
What is he saying?
He's sending us...
In the spirit, he was knowing that we were talking about him. He
senses a disturbance in the force.
What is he doing?
He sends us the craziest texts. I mean, they're cool texts. It just... The length
of the sense are intense. He's literally texting us about your acapella group.
What is he saying? What is he saying?
Okay, he said... I've got a request for an episode topic from you guys somewhere down the line. I would love to get my department involved in a fantastical world of competitive high school a cappella. Hey, wow, that's what our episode is about right now. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of The Choir Guys. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to The Choir Guys channel so you can know when new episodes are coming out. Also, if we're talking about things on here and you're like, I wonder what they're doing with their hands, watch it on YouTube. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Once again, The Choir Guys is brought to you by GIA Publications and Walton Music. Make sure to browse their website before programming music for your next concert.
You can follow the show on all social media at The Choir Guys Pod to catch bonus content throughout the week. Feel free to message us through these platforms if you want to hear us talk about something specific on the show, like Adrian just did. And guess what? We're already talking about what he wants us to talk about.
Thank you again to JD for being our guest on this podcast. You are awesome.
Amazing.
Hey, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And also tune in next time to our podcast for a discussion regarding how to start your school year, what to do.
Oh yeah, because we're probably going to take a little bit of a break since it's about to be summer, but we will come back and we will talk about how to set up things for the beginning of the year. And also sometime this summer, we are going to play one-on-one basketball, and that's going to be a special little episode that has nothing to do with choir at all, but we're going to embarrass the crap out of ourselves by doing that.
You just want to see me work like crazy.
I want to just see us dripping the most sweat everywhere.
I'm 5'9", which is average male American height. I'm just throwing it out there. And he is, what are you, 6'1"?
6'3", 6'4" if I'm feeling confident.
So I'm like playing the game of my life to try to be competitive. So, I mean, it's interesting.
Anyway, well, thank you so much for watching this special episode, and we will see you next time. Bye.